everything was flying. We won awards, growth year after year, but then things were slowing down. The CEO would get frustrated at the movement of things and try and get more involved, which to us felt micromanagey. So at that point, we just said, here's what we think the solution is. It wasn't the easiest conversation because it's his baby. And he kind of saying, let go of the leads a bit and empower people. It worked. And that was our step towards product centricity.
Welcome to LaunchPod, the show from LogRocket, where we sit down with top product and digital leaders. Today, we're talking with Steve Nash, Director of Product for GumGum, an ad tech platform that matches brands and consumers through AI-powered data and media solutions. In this episode, Steve talks about how to tell your CEO he's wrong and not lose your career, the story behind Playground's transition to product-centric culture and the pace of innovation it unlocked for the team, and why unifying behind Playground as the attention company led to their successful exit and acquisition by GumGum. So here's our conversation with Steve. Hey, Steve, what's up, man? Good to have you on the show.
Hey, Jeff, thanks for having me. Really great to meet you.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on. We've talked online, but I'm excited. I think you're our first Australian guest on the show, and really stoked to go through some of the cool product stuff you've built throughout your years in ad tech. This is going to be fun.
Sounds good. Yeah, hopefully first of many Australians. There's a lot of talented Australians out there.
Oh, I know so many Australian founders, but let's dive right in because you're over at a company called GumGum, but your road to getting there, you had actually been very early on at an Australian kind of ad tech company called Playground XYZ. You guys grew that up from nothing. But before you got to that kind of point of acquisition, the road was not all paved in gold and smooth. You guys had a quick start and then hit some bumps. But it sounds like the way you solved it was taking a look at it and going, we really need to focus the company on this view of product, so a much more product-centric view. Can you maybe just walk us through what was going on, how'd you grow it, and then what led to that kind of point of conflict where you had to really take product centricity to the max there?
It was fun and it was a challenge. And yeah, I was the founding employee, first employee, and tech guy, CEO, operations person. And we all hit the ground running, building this kind of ad tech platform that was all based on new creative canvases. Because at that time, it was 2016, the problem was everything was just inherited from desktop. So we had this kind of cool thing to bring it to life and make it cool and mobile centric. And that all worked. And we built all this cool stuff. We built all this cool tech. We all had backgrounds in kind of ad tech. So we knew what we needed to do. And yeah, everything was flying. We won awards. Everyone was rocking and rolling and growth year after year. Team was growing. We're all having fun, living the dream kind of thing. But then it got to a point where we were hiring more people and things were slowing down. And then I think what happened was that the CEO would get frustrated at the movement of things, and he'd want things to go faster, and then he'd try and get more involved and try and get more hands-on, which kind of to us felt micromanagey. And then we got our backs up and felt micromanaged and, hey, what's going on? Why isn't this working? And then also the CEO, because we'd grown so much, was also super busy. So he wasn't always there. So we'd gone from this point where we're 4 guys in a little office to this bigger company, like 30, 40 people. And things just were a bit broken. At that time, I wasn't talking to that many product people. I've been involved in UX and could code and design and stuff. My background's in design and I'm passionate about design creativity, but I didn't really have that expert level product thinking. And so at that point, things were broken. And I just remember reaching out to a friend of mine who was my former manager and kind of a mentor. And I was explaining to him what was going on and how frustrated I was and all the problems. I always remember it because it was just like a pivotal moment in kind of the company, but also my career, where he's like, you need to just know that this is a pretty common thing. Yeah, most startups go to rapid growth and then this thing happens. Read this book. And it was inspired Marty Kagan. And yeah, I'd never read it up until that point, even though I was in that sort of role doing that sort of thing. And then when I read it, it was basically a case study of our company and all these little quotes. And I sent them to the CTO at the time. And we were like, this is what we've got to do. And I was all in on it. And it seemed like all the answers were there. So at that point, we just took it to our CEO and said, here's what we think the solution is. But we sat down, had a discussion about it. It wasn't the easiest conversation because it's a thing like the CEO, it's his baby and he wants to grow it. And he's saying, let go of the leads a bit and kind of empower people and all that sort of thing. So it's not the easiest conversation, but it was one that they were open to. And we all got behind it. I put some decks together and talked about it to the team, and then we gave it a go. Been like the thing that he always recommends, like a little test kind of team, and then roll it out to the wider team. And yeah, it worked. And that was our step towards product centricity.
I'm curious, as much as the details of the actual movement to product centricity, but you brought up the actual conversation, because it's one thing to be a CEO. It's another thing to be the founder CEO and now having a team come to you and basically say, this isn't working. How do you go about having that kind of conversation with a CEO and basically say, you're holding on too tight, or in some cases, maybe it's not tight enough, but in this case, it was tight. But how would you recommend if someone else was going to go and talk to a founder CEO like that? How do you make it not a bad conversation?
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Putting you on the spot here.
Nah, that's awesome. He's the type of person that is like in the trenches and has these kind of conversations like, let's go to war. Like, we need to do this together and fight. And so we were all in it together. The pivotal moment for me was someone sat across the table from me and said, you're the CEO's pencil. You need to change that. Otherwise, it's never going to work. And so I knew for me, I had to have this conversation regardless, because otherwise there wouldn't be a career for me here, or it would be very challenging moving forward. So I knew I had to do it, and I knew it wouldn't be the most comfortable thing in the world. The best way to do it, to answer your question, is what I did. I knew I had a closer relationship with the CTO at the time. And I tested it with him. I was like, hey, look at all this stuff. I think this is our answer. And you bounce the idea off these other people, and also to my team. Because the thing I believe in as well is it's all based on kind of trust and being in the weeds with your team. And they were feeding up these frustrations. And at the time, they were just building things that they were told to build. And they're, I asked, why are we doing it? And they don't know. And they're just like, well, I was told to do it. I don't know. And then I had this kind of, these people who are senior in the company who think it should happen. And then also my team who are frustrated and don't know what's happening. And then all the data and evidence to say, look, I think if we make this change, I think there's a path forward. And we've got all this evidence. What do you think? He is a CEO of a business that's his baby, but he was open to it. And then we did move forward. And it's not just drop everything and do everything completely differently. It's let's test the waters. Let's try some things. I'm going to give you a little bit of autonomy, Nashi, and over to you. And then, we slowly made momentum and started getting a little bit of trust and making sure. Then I go to the team and say, this worked, but we've got to send it back. We've got to make sure that we're not given this thing and we just make the CEO kind of think this didn't work. So we have to live up to our end of the bargain and deliver on things that are valuable, feasible, viable for the business. I think that was the key. Buy-in and data.
It sounds like it's gain buy-in first from the kind of all the stakeholders who are going to be a part of it. Because if you're going to have that conversation, make sure other people agree with you, I guess, is a big part. But go in and, like you said, I think it's important that you recognized where your CEO is coming from, which is this is something he founded and it's his baby, and no one likes their baby being called ugly. So how do you come in and have a rational discussion like, hey, this is going to really help the business move forward. This is going to help these business objectives that we're maybe not totally optimized on right now, and frame it that way. But also then give like a taste of success, right? Here's come in with a process of here's how we can roll it out in a small testable way. Let's see if it works. Let's see if it does what we think it's going to do. Show a path, proving it out before you fully commit. And then I love that you actually brought it home though with, we have to deliver. It actually has to do what we're saying it's going to do. And we have to prove that it's not just hot air and people complaining, but we have to show that by changing this, we're going to do better. So in the end, it's, promise, show a way to test that promise, roll it out more and scale it, and then fulfill the promise. And then, I think very few CEOs that are really great are going to be mad in the end if you make their business better.
Yeah, exactly.
So you guys came to this more product-centric focus, which allowed you to focus more on the business outcomes and the big picture stuff you were trying to solve, and gave the team a little bit more ownership over the pieces they were driving, a little bit more empowerment, I think might be what Marty Kagan would call it, to go and get the pieces done they need. What did that lead to? Like, where did that take you guys over the next bit of time after that?
Yeah, it was the rocket fuel like I needed for me just to drive my next part of the career, and like me feeling like confident that there's a strong home here and I can do some cool stuff. And then as I was telling my teams, I could see them being excited about it and them wanting more. And then like just the makeup of the team and the structure of the business at the time, we had lots of really cool opportunities. So like it's ad tech. And you probably know like ad tech, when someone puts an RFP out or a brief, they don't want the thing that they bought last time. They want something new. So there's always this demand for something new. And then that turns into an opportunity for kind of us as product people to say, hey, let's like build something they didn't ask for. That's the best way we can prove it. Like we got this. Look at this thing that the sellers love. And that's what we embarked on doing. And there's a number of these little, like we made little bets. And yeah, that was one way of proving that trust, that we can make these bets. The sales team love them. They add to the value of the business and they're tied to the vision. I try to attend the sales meetings as much as I can. Like after all that product centricity, trying to listen to the customers. The sales team was our conduit to the customers, and that's the best way of doing it. And also ad tech and ad sales, it's a lot of it's relationship driven. So trying to look for the signals in conversations and stuff. But what happened in 2020, I think, when COVID hit us, brands got really conservative and they stopped spending on weird and wonderful things like we had at Playground. And they wanted to focus on the kind of standard, like social media and the tried and true things. And then I would go to these meetings and everyone would have their camera off. And I wasn't even sure if they were even there. And at the time, we had one of our bets that someone had pitched was like, it wasn't for COVID, but they hated the idea of us, like our design team, making these really cool ads that are like games. And then someone like squishes it into a GIF and then they resize it and it's all wonky. And then we're in a meeting and nobody even sees it or plays with it. You don't even get the fun part. So we had this idea of building our own presentation system. As the seller's talking about one of our products, we actually deliver it to the person's phone. And that's cool because like the problem was they weren't engaged. We send them to their phone and they're playing with it. They test our products, they're having fun, and we know they're actually on the app because we get to see the analytics.
Right.
And it wasn't a huge kind of pivot or anything, but it was just one of those cool little things we did that pushed us to not like it was the extra level where the CEO can let us do our thing. He can rely on us to deliver something to our sales team, and he could focus on the next thing and a broader vision. And we were working towards this attention kind of piece. Yeah, our little bet there was really cool. And I still use it today and present, and people find it amazing. And it's like they say, I've never attended a presentation like this. It's so interactive and fun. And it turns into revenue. Those are the little things help to develop that trust, because every business always gets to that point where it's like revenue's dropped. What are our 10 strategies? And it's not just product that has the answers there, right? Like it's marketing and all these different parts of the business, and they all have to have an answer. I always wanted to go in with an answer and things that I wanted to make rather than try and get told to make things. So that bet framework really helped us put that together.
I feel like we could have an entire episode just focused on this story right now, because there's just so many layers to it to unpack. One, this is a direct outcome of, if you had been in the kind of old paradigm there of the CEO telling everyone exactly what to do and people going, I don't know why we're doing it. We're doing it because we're told to do it. There's probably no way that would have gotten done because he wasn't in that meeting or those set of meetings. I'm sure he has a great vision. And, at some point or some level, you want a CEO who knows what product should be doing for some set of the big picture stuff, because you need that vision to run the company correctly. But there is also these kind of other pieces that maybe there isn't view into. So you need that level of autonomy to be able to react and go, I was in this situation, I saw this, and I see a way we can bring a better path forward. And you had the autonomy to do that. But beyond that, I also just love, as a product leader, you're on customer calls. I worked in ad tech back in the day and advertising, and you're not just diagnosing, oh, no one cares about the new feature we launched or something, or you're not telling them about the new feature launch, but you're sitting there going, I see a problem that we can solve through a solution that we can bring forward. And we had a dinner 2 nights ago in Austin, in Texas. And we had Aji Udezwe and his wife, Ezine, and they just published a book on product. But one of the big conversations I had with Ezine, who's a very successful CPO in her own right, was this kind of idea that there is like product management, and then there is product thinking, the same way like design thinking became very popular. And almost every function can use product thinking. And this is one of those cases where maybe it wasn't product management, but it's product thinking, where you looked at it when there's a better way to solve this problem of people being a little bored and not engaged in presentations. And we can solve the big business picture, which is we want to sell solutions to customers, right? I love that. You saw the big picture problem, not the small picture problem of we want to sell stuff. And to do that, we need to not just make a better feature, we need to make a better way to show them the feature. So you kind of identify this and said, we're going to do this. We're going to show you the aha moment before we even build the feature, aside from the feature itself. Do you have a case where that worked really well, or what did that allow you to post that?
In terms of the presentation system, in terms of what we were able to deliver for the company, like the whole team was taking it out and having great times, and it was all fun and stuff. And for me personally, it was my entry point into kind of almost like selling these things myself. I'm a big believer in storytelling and stuff. And so like I use this tool and present, and I like to tell the story of our products so I can know what we should be pitching and then hear what's coming back and ask those questions. So it's not just listening, but also telling that story. And then even to the point where the sellers here like me to do it. And they say it has more authenticity because you're not a salesperson, you're a product person. Right. And I'm also really passionate about it. So it works. But yeah, for the product team, that like all of those things together, like we've got the products that work. We've got a tool that kind of makes them more exciting and interesting. I always remember from one of our salespeople who says, I'm so glad you made this, Nashi. We're an attention company and our decks command attention now. That's perfect. And it was that. Like it was like turning the volume up on our brand and in a different way. And yeah, it's that thing that you were saying, like our CEO wasn't expecting that or thinking that, but that autonomy and those bets led us to that thinking and doing that thing. And yeah, he had more time to work on other things. And he's a kind of product person as well in a way. And we could build multiple products. And then it was something I gave autonomy to one of my team members to do, one of my PMs. And so I was stoked because she actually delivered the whole thing and did like all this storytelling stuff. Like we always talk about it with our team. And they did the Steve Jobs one more thing and they presented this thing to me and I'm like, wow. And it's that thing. If I'm excited, our sales team is excited, like the whole thing's going to go great. And yeah, it all started from that thing of just give us a little bit more autonomy. Team gets excited. Let's make some bets. And then the team's like in control of their destiny and they're passionate and they're focused and they want to build things in their spare time for the company, which is like pretty cool if you can get it to that point.
You crystallized it really well in just a couple of words. We're an attention company and now our decks even draw attention, right? Like if you're a design firm and your website looks like trash, why would anyone ever hire you? If you are saying what your company does is we build solutions that command attention for you. But yet you're sitting there with a deck that everyone's falling asleep during and you're not really selling the proof that like, no, we know how to draw attention. So why would they believe you on the feature side? But by just crystallizing it that simply, everyone has the clear mission now of what you do. And now, like you said, it was you had a member of your team who was able to do that. And a member of your team was able to do something else. And I always joke with the folks here, half joke, half serious with the folks here at LogRocket about we want to be very crystal clear about what we're trying to accomplish. We want to be very crystal clear about why your part ladders up to that. And it's not because I want to be super nice and consensus driven, everything like that. I think there's times sometimes you can't be consensus driven. But what we need to do is we can't live in a world where it's three executives thinking about the big problems and everyone else just being, like you said, the pencil. Because then you only have three somewhat hopefully intelligent people thinking about something. We're going to do so much better if we have 20, 30, 40, 100 intelligent people thinking about these problems and being able to bring solutions. It's selfishly, I want everyone doing that.
Yeah, totally. It's like missionaries versus mercenaries, right? You want them thinking about it before they go to bed and like walking in. Hey, I had this big idea. Like we had a guy who always came in and said, I had a big idea in the shower. And that was his way he started his day. And it's just, once you got that stuff, like that's the rocket fuel because you're getting work after hours kind of thing. So yeah, I really love that.
Shower ideas. That's my favorite idea. Maybe this is more about me than reality, but so, you guys built this and then it seems like another thing that kind of came out of this, just better crystallization of what everyone's mission here was this idea of the attention tracking for creative tool, which actually ultimately seems like led to where you guys are now, which is a part of GumGum. But I guess let's roll back real quick. What problem was it set out to solve? Like, how did you guys come to this, and why was this the solution? And then how did this lead to where y'all are now? Cool tech, by the way. Like everything you guys, as I went through and got ready for this episode, there's so much cool stuff you built. I could just nerd out with you for a couple hours on this. So unfortunately, we're not going to do that. But people should check this stuff out. It's pretty neat, even just academically for a marketer. So
yeah, it's a really cool space. So I guess the problem was like metrics at the time, like viewability and click-through rates. We built these canvases that were all really awesome, but they kind of didn't really hit those metrics. It was because like they were old and they were built for different purposes and that sort of thing. And so attention was developed to understand like people actually looking at the ad versus you can put it down the corner and it's viewable, but are people looking at it? Probably not. So it's that metric that's a better proxy for outcomes, basically. And then, yeah, we had this signal and people loved it. And it was a big part of our company. And that was, again, the CEO had time to develop that vision. And we split off and we had an attention business. He was able to drive that. And then I was looking at it from the creative angle. Our ads are highly interactive and people can just scroll right past them or leave them in view or play with them. So we came up with this kind of mechanic of measuring the stay and play. And so if your ad's interesting, people are going to stay and play. If it's not, people scroll past, and then we map it out on a graph. And when we started doing that, like we saw really interesting things. Like we could see visually this ad versus that ad. And my favorite one is a little bit wild. It's like this one campaign, same ad, same targeting, everything the same, but there was an image that was different. And one of them was an image of a family, and one of them was an image of a woman in a bikini. And you can guess which way this is going, but people stayed and played on the woman with the bikini. And we all know that this kind of concept in advertising works, right? Sex sells, basically. But to visualize it and see it was super interesting. And then it got us, like, I wasn't sure if that's really that appropriate to share with advertisers, but when I showed it to people, they were like, this is really interesting because it talks to not just attention and people looking at things, but what's the sort of attention we want to be getting as a brand? So
what kind of attention do you really want there?
Yeah, exactly. If you make things flash or do these sorts of things, yeah, you can get attention, but is it the attention you want? So that's what was really great for me because we built out this platform, our teams, and then we get all these insights. And then that's the kind of rocket fuel for creative. Because we're not just talking about creative in isolation. Isn't this like fun and interesting? It's look at the data. Like people like this more than that. And as a designer, like it backs up all the stuff you think about. Like people like things that are like moving and people's eyes are drawn to things. Contrast, spacing, things that are like fewer words attract more attention. Lots of words lose attention. People love looking at people and all those sorts of things. So it is the most wonderful tool for our teams because we can start using that data to learn stuff. And again, this is like all one of those bets that we just wanted to go a little bit deeper on that problem. And someone developed this in their spare time, and then it's turned into a full product. Yeah. And now we take it to market and present it and share it with people.
Well, I know this led to something else, but I just want to plug in. What I love about this is like eye tracking and attention tracking existed at that point, right? But there's more to it than just the raw data itself or being able to see like the averages, like where people looked. It's how do you connect that to actionable things that people can do, right? Like they looked at the woman in bikini over the family, but is that really the attention you want? And brand gave your customers the ability to make not just raw data decisions, but actually outcome based or decision based or business kind of focused KPI decisions about what are the things we really want to do and what do we want to achieve. And they were able to have that conversation. It reminds me a lot of kind of how we've looked to evolve kind of what we've done at LogRocket here, which is we do session replay and analytics, and we've done that since 2016. But the problem has always been you might have deal with a ton of high volume customers over in the ad tech space, and you can have millions of sessions a month. And sure, you have the data, but what are you going to do? Watch 100,000 sessions and manually map it out? And so that's where we realize the real benefit is not in the session itself. That's the raw underpinning, but it's how do you bring those insights forward the same way, right? What were they doing? Why were they paying attention? You can say, oh, it's the bikini versus the family, but do we really want them looking at the bikini? Is that who we want to be? Similarly, like you can have their analytics tools before that showed you, oh, your funnel dropped from here to here over these 4 steps, but why? And maybe you could go watch 100 sessions, 1,000 sessions and figure it out somewhat. But we built a tool that was able to watch those sessions for you and analyze the user flows and what was happening behind the scenes, and use AI to pull out the salient and say, you have a bunch of people who are confused because they're going around, they can't figure out what to click. You should fix that at this step. This is just physically broken, right? Like sometimes you just can't pick a shoe size on your site, but it's picking those few things out that you can focus on. And it tells you the things you need to pay attention to versus having to go watch 100,000 sessions. It's surfacing insights. And right, it comes back to same thing you guys were looking at, is how do we solve these customer problems, right? It's product thinking about the problem of people don't want to just see heat mapping on their ads. They don't want to just see 100,000, 10 million sessions a month. They want to know, what does it mean? And you guys were able to surface that this way through the ad tech, which is fantastic. I would love to know this data about ads I'm running, because that would be so incredibly helpful.
Yeah, run some ads with GumGum and we could do it.
Maybe that's benefit of hosting this thing, is once in a while I run into something where I go, I should be using your thing. So beyond that though, beyond this being a fantastic kind of tech move forward and ability to give your customers a lot more value, it sounds like it queued you guys up for the next thing, which leads to where you are now, which is Playground was acquired by GumGum, which is an American-based company, right?
Yeah, GumGum had a contextual business, and they were big in kind of high impact creative. And yeah, they love this attention sort of stuff. And yeah, the idea and where we're going today is a product called the Graph, which again, to solve the customer problem of ad, right place, but knowing where people look at it, all under the one roof. That data can tell those insights and give people guidance that helps them with their spend in ways that they can't today. So listening to the internet and then also listening to how people respond. So how things like LogRocket, seeing those nuances and visualizing them and making it like returning insights to the brand. And this is about you. Like, this is what happened. And then letting them feel like they're making decisions. And at the end of the day, the kind of buyer just wants to feel like they've learned something, they've done something, and how it's gone up. And yeah, like I think we do the same sorts of things. The thing I love about kind of LogRocket and solutions like that is that it's often the smallest thing that makes a big difference.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of it's kind of design based. And that's the thing that always I love, like the difference between function and kind of success is often the execution. And
yeah,
I feel like all of these tools and stuff you guys are making and this sort of stuff is about getting us to that level where you can measure that and you can give insights on that. And it's eliminating people.
This is something I think is really interesting to talk about. And I think it's an area you've found interesting historically as well. How do you create things with a design view and have that kind of taste to create things where it's laid out in an intuitive way that people can use it well, that people are going to come to the outcome that you want them to, whether it be you're delivering ads that you don't want to be associated with sex sells, so the bikini is not the right thing, even if it's going to draw more attention, or you're buying shoes and we're able to say on an e-commerce site, people are confused and they're just clicking around a lot because they don't know what to do. That's not a technical problem. That's a like design taste problem of how do you create environments where people can easily figure out what you want them to do, intake the data you want them, and like have the outcome you want. And this is something I'm always so curious about. And you do have a design background, so maybe I can ask you, what is your view on this? There's taste, and it's so important to designing great products, great experiences, great, all of this, great ads and ad copy as well, and ad visuals. What is the heart of taste? Do you think taste is something we can all learn? Is it something maybe intuitive or?
I love this. People are drawn to different things and view things different ways, but I always start with the Steve Jobs quote, like design is how it works, basically. And it's kind of everything. And it's beautiful when you don't notice it. And it's so wonderful that you just slip right through it. And that's what we aim for. But that is the most difficult thing sometimes, especially if you're trying to deliver new things, because you're trying to disrupt things, but make it intuitive. That's pretty hard. Building another shopping cart, you just borrow a stencil and do the same thing and everybody will flow through. But when you're doing new things, that's when it's crazy. And that's like, I was reading yesterday, I don't know if you know the story of Notion. They had their background where they built their app. Like it was a guy that was really wanted to build an app about doing brain dumps. And it was like feature driven, but it didn't work. And then they all moved to Japan and they lived in Kyoto and they lived a life of very simple life. And then the whole app is just about simplicity. I remove everything on the interface and let people communicate. And that was one of the key things that made it successful. Airbnb, like same sort of thing. All of these kind of design-based kind of founders, or when people inject design into things and the taste factor, like it makes things not just beautiful, but wonderful and functional and different. Like Airbnb looks like nothing else out there. And I think that's the design thing. And that's what's so unique and wonderful. And yeah, I don't think that is something you can learn. But when we hire designers, good at it or not, you can learn tools and stuff. But if you don't have that design sense, it's not there. And that's what I think is like so exciting moving forward, because with AI and all this stuff, and everyone's going to be making lots of stuff really fast. But having that design sense and having that taste is what's going to make your to-do app stand out over someone else's to-do app or things like that.
I heard it put once that taste is, at some level, the ability to know that something's going to do well before you put it out and before you test it and before you have people use it. Because that applies much more than just like, at some level, I think some people think like taste might be like your picture or how you laid out your website or how you laid out your app. But it's so much more than that. If you think about design and taste as design thinking, it's how do you lay out a process? How do you lay out the entire experience in a way that, like, you as a business, you're an attention company. How do you lay out an experience that's going to gain you the attention you need throughout your ad sales, right? So the taste of knowing that let's make this interactive, because the aha moment we need to have in their hand. Or taste is how do you enable your customers to use tools that you've provided to get whatever their ad is out in a way that's going to drive attention for them. That's really interesting that at some level you think taste is just intuitive into the brain.
It's hard to define, but yeah, it really separates things. And it's how we deliver those. And what we always try to focus on is like a surprise and delight moment. People don't expect it, but it's intuitive and they go through with it and they enjoy it. And if you can deliver that on top of whatever function the app's trying to do, then I think that's what success is. And yeah, it's really interesting space. Design just generally, like I really love meeting designers or just experiencing things visually. Like the visual medium is just, in terms of kind of apps and technology, colors and how people think about problems and display them in unique ways and how they solve them and make it so seamless and intuitive. I don't know if you've used Granola. That's my newest thing. And it's just the most amazingly simple app. And it was just so intuitive and it was in my system and done, and it just part of my workflow. And it was like, I don't even know how I like live without this. And it's just so simple in there. It's not full of imagery or anything, but it's just beautifully simple.
Yeah. I guess it comes down to probably like, how do you have taste? And taste is probably a little variable, because it's how do you know how to create something that's going to resonate for the people you're trying to build for? And it might be what is going to be in good taste for one persona group is going to be actually a really bad experience for others. Maybe taste is a little mobile as you move around and move through those sets. But I will say I like the idea of surprise and delight. And one thing that surprised and delighted me was, as we prep for this, just how much there was in the ad tech world and how much you guys like developed and changed, and some cool stories that we're able to go through. I recognize I can't steal your whole day to talk about all this stuff. This has been a real blast, man. Hopefully we can have you back on someday, rehash some more stuff, talk more about taste, because I think there's a lot we didn't go into, but it's been a real blast having you on here. I know you said you like to talk to designers and all those folks. Is there a good place for people to reach out to you? I know we met on LinkedIn. Is that the best spot?
Yeah. Steve Nash on LinkedIn. Not the basketball guy.
Not the basketball player, just the visionary product leader. But it was great having you on, man. Thank you so much for joining, and hopefully we can do this again.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks for the time. And yeah, I'd really love to meet anyone interested in design and products. Yeah, please do hit me up. I'm in New York now from Australia, missing some friends. So yeah, if you're around, I'd love to buy you a beer.
Nice. That's a pretty good offer. All right. Next time I'm in New York, I'll let you know. All right, Steve. Great to have you on. Thanks, man.
Thanks so much, Jeff. Speak soon.